Good evening and welcome to tonight's edition of Fact Sheet Live on eTV Live, on Facebook Live on Nisim 95.9 and 100.1. We're excited to have you join us tonight as we discuss issues of national interest. And tonight our focus is on a very, very important matter which is taking center stage in the media space, one which has to do with students and the senior high school. For this purpose, or for this discussion, we are focusing attention on Konongo Odumase Secondary School. We woke up to the news of a student stabbing a junior student at the Konongo Odumase Senior High School. 4 other students have been arrested by the Ghana police in connection with what now has been described as murder, and 4 being charged with abetment of the crime. It raises concerns about the situation in our schools as to matters to do with discipline, matters to do with administration of these schools, matters to do with the protection of the rights of individuals in the various second cycle institutions. Even as the case proceeds and this matter is still ongoing, these students have been remanded to reappear in court on the 15th, which is next week, God willing. Now, in dealing with this matter, we will try to understand how this could have happened, with various secondary schools having various house masters, having various administrative processes that are supposed to prevent students even wielding these arms in the first place. The knife that was used, where did the student get it from? Are there loopholes in our educational system? The issue to do with bullying in various schools. It would be the first time we are hearing about bullying in our various second cycle institutions. We all went through it. But how did it get to the extent where a student gets killed? That's where we'll focus attention on. If you have been following the matter, you would realize that in remanding the students, these students were supposed to be taken to a center per the laws, that's the Juvenile Justice Act 2003. What does it stipulate as to the protection of the rights of these students even as they go through this phase of their life? Their identities are supposed to be protected. Their parents are supposed to, or relatives are supposed to be in the know when it comes to, the proceedings. A lawyer representing them is also supposed to be with them. Tonight, we will try to understand whether the police has been able to go through all this. There is a juvenile court that's supposed to sit on matters of this nature, sorry. Is that what we are seeing now? We'll try to understand all of these things, even as we delve deeper into the Konongo Odumase Senior High School killing, which has taken the nation by storm. My name is Samuel Ishen, and I welcome you to tonight's edition of Fact Sheet Live on eTV. We'll take a short break, and when we come back, I'll introduce you to my guests. Live on eTV. Tonight, my guest to help me discuss this matter are Dr. Daniel Osabuti, who is a senior lecturer at Accra Technical University. So would Mr. Peter Anti also join us. He is executive director for iFest to share their thoughts on this particular matter that we are discussing, which has to do with the killing of a student of the Konongo Odumase Senior High School, where 4 students have been, remanded, and 1 as well also been remanded as well, 1 charged for the murder and the others for abetment. And Doc is with me. We'll try to understand how this could have happened in the first place, knowing that the entire episode of juniors going to school and being bullied by seniors, and then we also become seniors and we also bully juniors. It's been a ritual, it's been a convention, it's been something in the system. How did it get here? Especially at a time when the picture is being painted that all these things have been faded out of the system. We're told that even teachers are not supposed to whip students in school. And so how could this come about? Doc, good evening.
Good evening, Sammy.
Let me take your initial reactions to the case of KOSS and what is happening there.
Yeah, let me say good evening to viewers of eTV. Sammy, when I heard the news, I was taken aback. I was really, really disturbed. Why children who have been sent to school to go and learn would decide to engage in such acts of barbarism. But, Sammy, there are so many factors that normally contribute to some of these indisciplines in our schools. And I don't think that it just happened out of the blue. The fact is, did the school pick up certain signals that students are gradually engaging in indiscipline, okay? Because there are causes of indiscipline. We can have it on the part of students. One has to also do with the environment that we have in the various schools. And we can also have societal causes, okay? So when you look at the causes on the part of students, you have realized that abuse of seniority by most of the seniors or the prefects normally result in some of these acts of indiscipline, where seniors think that we have Form 1 students coming to the school and it is their right for them to bully those students. It depends on where they are coming from. There are some who will be able to take such punishment. Others wouldn't be able to take it. Now, what we are hearing from the school was that the deceased was bullied, right? Okay. And then somebody who decided to come in to assist rather face the consequences, right? It is unfortunate, Sammy. In the first place, I think that the police have taken up the matter. I would advise that we shouldn't go ahead of the police. We shouldn't preempt anything. We should allow the police to do their work. They have to really engage in in-depth investigations to unravel the reasons for what we are experiencing now. It is unfortunate, and let me express my condolences to the deceased parents and their family, because you cannot just be in the house and hear that your ward has been stabbed. But going forward, it means that we have a lot of work to do in the schools, as parents, and then the students themselves. We should be able to crack the whip on our campuses. Yesterday, a sister station called wanting to know my view when it comes to withdrawal of the cane, that is corporal punishment. And I told her that in a way, students think that now they are not supposed to be punished, so they get to school and they decide to do whatever they want to do. But Sammy, we were in school, we went through corporal punishment. In a way, we were able to learn our lessons. We came out as better people. So why this time round we are saying that we shouldn't use a cane? The cane can, to an extent, be used. Just that we shouldn't abuse the use of the cane. You see, so there are so many factors that have contributed to some of the indisciplines we have in the school. And I told you from the beginning that it just didn't happen. But then at least we have some precedents. Are you getting it? Now, how will you know that students are beginning to engage in indiscipline? You give them work they wouldn't do, nobody can touch them. It is an act of indiscipline. They start giving teachers names. What do we hear when they say, we had some students who said because their assistant headmaster prevented them from copying during the exams. So they went to his farm and they destroyed the farm. What happened to them? So these are all acts of indiscipline. So once we begin to see some of these signs, as an institution, that should be a wake-up call that we need to crack the whip.
Well, it's interesting the description you give to the acts that happened in school when even we were there. Was it really indiscipline when seniors ensured that, for instance, on Saturdays, if housemasters are coming around, all juniors had their beds laid? Was it indiscipline that a senior would call you and tell you, read your surroundings and it's done? Was it indiscipline that your senior would call you and tell you, the toilet facilities must all be kept clean and neat? Was it indiscipline when our seniors could tell us that you don't eat in the dormitory and that what you do? These are the things that happened when we went to school
Yeah.
that we described as in the tree language.
Yeah.
Seniors, I said one a bullying.
Sammy, what you've just said is a way of instilling discipline. You understand? Because if you are taught how to lay your bed, not to eat in the dormitory, it is to tell you something that you need to live that moral life. So you don't just go to school, acquire knowledge, but you need to also acquire moral, life. You should be able to have that kind of change. Education, how do you measure that somebody has really gone through education? You should see some kind of change in the behavior, the attitude, and the character of the person.
Let me interrupt you for a second.
Yes.
At the time, what we described as, or what we are describing today as indiscipline, was to see a senior tell a small boy, kneel down. And the person kneels down for, let's say, an hour or 30 minutes or so.
Yeah.
Where you'd have a senior tell somebody, go and fetch water for me, or go to the dining hall and bring me food.
Yeah.
These are things that we felt were abuses on us.
Yes.
But they shaped us in the process, did it not?
Exactly. You see, some of these things, in a way, really shaped us. Because I don't think with the experience that you had when you were in school, you'll come out and then live that contrary life. No. You have learned lots of lessons. Maybe at the time they were taking you through those things, you thought that they were punishing you.
Exactly.
But it was not punishment. It was really to teach you discipline. Now, why is it that when it is time for prep, you have to be there? Why is it that when it is time for you to go to bed, you should be in your dormitory and sleep? It is to tell you that you have to obey time. And they are all parts of that moral education I was talking about. So I believe that now our emphasis, not only should we look at educating people, but we should also add the moral aspect of it. Okay? Because morally, why should you even slap a colleague in school? Even if that person is a junior student. You don't have the right to do that. You understand? So I don't think that the way we are supposed to lead our lives when we are on campus, following rules and regulations, they are all there to guide us. They are all there to make sure that we come out as better people, not as we went in the school, but we should be able to have some kind of transformation.
You made the point about not preempting the work of the police.
Yes.
But you also used the word barbaric, what had happened at Konongo-Dumasi Senior High School.
Yeah.
Would you say that as much as the incident has happened, that it would be the intent of the young man who unfortunately has killed somebody to go for the kill?
You see, Sammy,
because of a matter of an individual seeking to separate a fight.
Yeah. It said in law that the devil doesn't know the intent of man. But how can I deduce your intention? By what you say and by what you do. You understand? So if you keep on saying, I'll kill you, I'll kill you, and then unfortunately something happens, and they pull the gun or the knife or something, because you kept on confessing, killing, it is assumed that you had planned of doing that thing, and you really executed it. You understand? Now, what happened in Konongo-Dumasi, I have described it as barbaric act. Okay. In the first place, how did that student even get the knife?
But we are supposed to have cutlery sets. Are we not? We're supposed to have cutlery sets when we are going to school. It was one of the requirements, as far as I know, that we were supposed to have, that you should have cutlery sets when you're coming to school.
Sammy, maybe the police is here to inform us.
Exactly.
The exact, whether it was...
The account I have read says that it was a kitchen knife or something.
Kitchen knife.
Yeah,
so that's a kitchen knife to school.
I don't know.
Yes.
I don't know.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because what I know is that immediately get to campus, okay, we have housemaster who will inspect the things that you've brought to the school.
Yeah.
Okay? Those contraband items are immediately seized. Right from your attire, your shoes, everything. That is why we all have to ask ourselves, where did those students get that offensive weapon? It's very important. Could it be that they just went to the canteen and secretly brought it out? Or could it be that it was hidden somewhere and they were the only person who could have access to it? But you see, Sammy, thinking through this, I realized that sometimes our school environment is not too conducive.
For?
Look, if you have places where students can easily hide and misbehave, it is always difficult to control some of the students because they engage in that act and quickly they know where to hide themselves. You are talking about uncompleted buildings, you are talking about bushes all around, where it serves as some safe haven for them. They can decide to come out and do whatever they want to do, and before one could say Jack, they are in there. You cannot get them.
Let me go to the phone lines and speak to Mr. Peter Anti, pick his thoughts on the development in the school. Mr. Anti, good evening. Hello, good evening, Mr. Anti. All right, we will try and work the phone lines and see if we can get Mr. Peter Anti on the line and continue the conversation. But if you can hear me, sir, good evening. All right, too bad. It looks as if we don't have him on the line. So let me just come back to the studio.
Yes, I mean.
So, I mean, we are trying to understand, you know, what could have happened.
Yeah.
And how this student. I was going through social media, Twitter today. Okay. I had a lot of people make the comment that this is an unfortunate situation, unfortunate incident that had happened. And a lot of them expressed the thought that it could not have been the intent to kill, but it could have been an overzealous senior trying to show force that I'm a senior, and then this has happened. Where does the administrators of the school, where do they come in?
Yeah.
Please hold on a second for me and let me see if I can establish contact with Mr. Anti and pick his thoughts on the matter. Mr. Anti, if you can hear me, good evening.
I can hear you. Good evening.
All right. So I would ask your reaction to the incident in Konongo Dumasi Secondary School. How did you receive the news and how did you react to it?
Good evening to your viewers and listeners. I have to make this point. In 2018, we did a study looking at the changing dynamics of indiscipline and violence on campuses. And we realized that over the years, there is a gradual shift from the normal kind of indiscipline and violence that we know on campus to instances where students now resort to the destruction of property and harming of staff and other college students. We flagged this and then we decided to bring this to the attention of relevant authorities so that we'll be able to sit down and have a comprehensive discussion as to what is really happening on our campuses. And we did that because everybody who have done sociology knows that the two most important socialization platforms of an individual is the school and the family. If you study how society is changing now, you will realize that the family is gradually pushing its responsibility to the school. So most of our kids spend a lot of their time in school now, even more than with their own family. So the school needs to be a place where we don't only teach the academic staff, but we also try to mold the behavior of the students. So for me, it was not surprising hearing this because it's been happening. It's been happening in our secondary schools. The kind of attitudes and behavior, the nature of indiscipline that keeps happening in our schools. And when I heard this, it was just a confirmation of the changing dynamics of things happening on our campuses, which we, all of us, have closed our ears and our minds to, and it is coming to bite us gradually.
What would you say is the cause of this shift?
It's the changing dynamics of the entire society that we are living in. The first point I would want to make about this is our understanding of discipline on our campuses. You see, at a point in time, we realized that teachers were abusing the canes and they were inflicting physical harm on the students. So we decided that let's put in measures to ensure that these physical harm that some teachers would inflict on students are brought under control. But in doing that and trying to import other disciplinary measures, we forgot to equip the teachers to know how to use these alternative disciplinary measures. And also, we did not institute regular support system in our schools. Now, let me zoom into this instance, this incident in KOSS. You agree with me that, and anybody who has been through our secondary school system knows all the stubborn students on campus. Every teacher, every student on campus know that this group of people are very stubborn. Now, if we were able to institute proper support system as it exists in other jurisdictions, these students would have been profiled and they would have undergone series of counseling, series of psychological support, psychosocial support over the years, informations and other things, so that by the time they graduate or they leave the system, they would have undergone certain kind of behavior transformation. But we could not do that, and we have restricted the teachers from also doing what the students, let me put in brackets, they fear. So now the teachers are just going there. They are handicapped because they are not proficient in applying modern methods of disciplining students. At the same time, the school system do not have any support system to mold the behavior of the students. This is the end result of what we are experiencing.
Now, I would ask the question about this whole concept of senior and junior. Is it that which has caused this incident that we are talking about? Is it that which has caused the incident of, the breakdown and discipline in our various second cycle institutions?
I'm a realist. We all went through the secondary school system, or most of us did. And one of the things that the boarding school system does is that it teaches you so many other things that maybe you might not pick in the classrooms. And one of them is respect for authority. I heard the other guests in the studio talking about asking students to, I don't know whether it was you, to assist, go and fetch water, go and bring this and other things. It's respect for authority. I don't think that trying to separate the senior from the junior and asking the junior to undertake certain activities that are not abusive is something that should degenerate to what we experience. What we experience, and if the authorities in the school would be fair with us, what we experience, they have seen, or they foresaw it happening, because these students might have undertaken certain kind of indisciplined activities that the school authorities might have just glossed over, and that is the end result. So I don't think senior, junior, asking the first year student to show respect, lay his bed, go and pick food for him, go and buy this for the senior and all those. I personally, I don't have any problem with that. So far as it is not abusive, so far as it does not cause physical harm to the student, I don't think it's something that in our houses we do. We have senior brothers, the junior ones are there. The junior is supposed to serve the senior. It's something that is in our system, and I don't think that, unless it is degenerating into something serious like this, I don't think it's something that we should even blame anything on.
Now, the point about supervision then comes in, because if we admit that those of us who went through the senior high school system, we saw extremes where these abuses got out of hand. Some were beaten, some were lashed, and several other, abusive acts were, committed against people in school. At the time these things happen, A senior housemaster who is supposed to be in the house to prevent this happening is in an accommodation facility which is maybe about 100 meters away from the house, or 200 meters away from that house, and so cannot be there to even intervene. The house prefect who is in that house may not have that authority or power to stop this incident from happening, because the person who might be perpetuating this act is also the same age, same class as this individual. Does this call for a reform in terms of the structure of our secondary schools?
What he's saying is very true. I think it's falls in within the support systems that I was talking about, because if you empower the senior housemaster, you are able to raise his allowance. They are always complaining about the allowances that they take as senior housemasters and other extra duty allowances that they. So if you want him to if you want him to take his work seriously, then you will need to pay him give him increase his allowance so that he takes his work serious. The school, the house prefects would also need some kind of capacity building in order to ensure that whatever is happening is brought under control. One thing that I think we will also have to look at from the perspective of your question is how assertive and outspoken our students should be. For example, if you are in a school system, two things happen. If these students reported this particular incident to the authorities, it's either that he's going to be flagged and victimized by maybe even his colleagues and other seniors. So what protective mechanism do we even have for students who are able to who are bullied and would want to report? At the same time, most of our students are timid. They are not assertive. And because of that, they do not even have the capacity to work and report incidents like this to the authorities when they happen.
I am smiling whilst you're talking about and using words like timid and all. Because here is a Form 1 student who has gone to secondary school, sees an A-level student, sees an O-level student, grown up, and this person decides to abuse you. And you think that student, Form 1 boy, with all the stories we heard from our big brothers and big sisters, you think you can be assertive enough to say no and still live in the same dormitory with that senior?
You know the response I was coming to give you. You can't do that to a child of the same age in another country. You know that the child will stand up to his right, and that is something that we will need to talk about. We need to try and make sure that our students are a little bit assertive. I'm saying this, I know that they are not even at the workplace. Sometimes, or grown-ups like us, we find it difficult standing up to our bosses when we are being abused and bullied. So I understand. But what I'm trying to say is that whilst we are trying to find measures and ways to ensure that some of these things do not occur, and the instances where the housemaster is not available to readily step in and prevent some of these things from happening, and the house prefect is handicapped, we need students we need to build the confidence of our students to be able to stand up to some of these bullying tactics on campus. And that is the point I'm just trying to make, that the student knows that when he resists and he walks out and go and report, he's not going to victimize, he's not going to be marked or flagged and later bullied more than even what he would have gone through. So trying to make our students assertive would also help a little, because mostly these things will happen at the blind side of the school authorities. How would we be able to prevent it? It boils down to the students' ability to resist and also to report, so that the system will pick it up and then handle those students who are involved in this. And that is the point I'm just trying to make. I know that it's going to be a little bit difficult, but if you're able to build our school system in such a way that students can freely walk into such offices, counseling office or whatever office, and report to the authorities instances of being abused. And if you are able to profile these students who are engaged in bullying others and pay particular attention to whatever they do, I think we'll be able to deal with this. But we are not doing that, and we have rendered the teacher incapable of instilling discipline into the life of the students. So at the end of the day, these are the things we're going to witness in our schools, and it's going to happen. A lot of them would happen unless, of course, the managers of our schools and those who matter sit down and realize that we are causing a great havoc to the society and the next generation.
If you just join us, you're live on eTV, watching Fact Sheet live on Facebook, live on Nissim 95.9 and 100.1. Now, let's come to the issue of the handling of the case and the reportage.
Okay.
This morning, I had cause to protest the banner headline of a paper this morning, which classified this young boy who has found himself in this unfortunate situation as a killer student. That's how he was described. But if you read a juvenile justice law, as we speak now, the boy's name is in the public domain. The law frowns on the release of information about juveniles who find themselves in such situations, the publications we do, and the protection of their identities. The law stipulates the role their parents, their relatives must play to ensure that at that age below 18 years, they are protected. And yet, are you happy about how we're handling this case?
It appears people are being too emotional in the reportage because I don't think that this is time for us to begin to misrepresent facts. Okay, you know, I told you from the beginning that immediately we begin to do this, we make the work of the police very difficult because they have started investigating the matter. So if you begin to then preempt, if you begin to then have some captions, all in the name of selling your paper or whatever, I don't think it is going to help in unraveling the mystery behind this unfortunate incident. So I would advise the media, in as much as people are not happy with the with the issue, I don't think that we have to overhype it. Okay, if you are reporting, we have to report what really happened, right? And as you rightly mentioned, there are rules and regulations that are supposed to guide and guard these juveniles. Okay, you mentioned that the name shouldn't have been put in the public domain, and you are right. Okay, and in a way, they have to also be protected, because as we speak, you cannot just call that boy a killer. You know, I told you the act was barbaric, but I didn't say that that boy in itself, how do I even put it? The act that he engaged in should be condemned. Okay, the act itself is a condemnable act. But then the one who did it should be protected. Right. So I will advise the media to pull the brakes and allow the police to do their work. Whatever they will decide on, fine. Because I don't think that they'll come out with something different from what really happened. Okay. But Sami, going forward, we really have to look at certain modifications in our rules and regulations in the various schools. We need to look at it very well. I think if going forward, we begin to involve students in making our rules and regulations, it will help.
How?
We have student leadership in our various schools. Okay. So anytime a school is formulating a policy to either protect the school's property or protect students, the question is, do we involve student leadership? Because if you involve them and they understand the reason for that particular policy or rules and regulations, they will be ambassadors. So they will rather go out and preach the good news to their colleagues. So they don't look at the school authority as enemies. But then they have trained their own people. You know, Sami, peer education is very important. If you understand why the school has ruled out that policy, you'll be able to go out and educate your colleagues. But I don't think it's being done. So going forward, I will recommend that school authorities should involve students, especially when it gets to issues that has to do with their welfare, that has to do with discipline and everything on our campuses. It will help. Again, we need to also strengthen our parent-teacher association. These days, what are we hearing? What are we seeing? Because parents have been asked not to, schools have been asked not to take dues from parents. We see that our PTAs are getting weaker and weaker. Right. But how can we strengthen the parent-teacher association? Because, look, if you have a ward in a school and that ward begins to misbehave, the first point of call will be the parent. So how effective are we communicating with parents? Okay, I think that if we are able to strengthen our PTA, it will go a long way to also reduce some of these problems. And then you ask yourself, these days, we hardly hear of extracurricular activities. In our time, we have drama club, we have debate clubs, we have other clubs in our schools. And as you engage students in such extra activities, in a way you keep them busy. And they have no time to engage in any form of indiscipline. So I will encourage that we should go back and then make sure we have some of these extracurricular activities on our campuses.
Now, let me quickly go to the phone lines and speak to Mr. Anti. We have just a few more minutes before we round up our discussion tonight. And the question I'm asking has to do with, if you read the stories, we are told that the court remanded them to reappear on the 15th of November, and that they are supposed to be at these remand homes or centers. Now, if you read the Juvenile Justice Act, it tells you that these homes or centers are supposed to be or to meet certain standards, and that it reads, the Minister for Interior responsible, and the Minister for Interior and the Minister for Social Welfare are supposed to pay periodic visits to these centers and homes to ensure they meet certain standards. As it stands now, these facilities that we are talking about, Ms. Auntie, do you think they would be in the standards that firstly would protect these students who, in this case, are being sent there? Can it refine them even as the case travels its full course? Hello, Ms. Auntie.
No, I don't think the facilities are in good shape. I've already told you that in our system, there are no proper support systems for anybody. If there is, there wouldn't be kids all over the streets in Accra, the capital of Ghana. And while you are driving and you are in traffic, these kids will come and be attacking you and all that. There are no support systems in the country, and so this boy who have done this thing allegedly would have to make do with whatever system that we have as at now. But we will need to. You see, I have to make this point. We need to put our money where our mouth is. The society that we are building have a lot of lapses, and it's unfortunate that the leadership are not seeing it, because those we call the future generation are gradually becoming something that they ought not to be. Remember the Kaswa incident? Two young guys murdered somebody. The friend at the studio just mentioned what they did to the headmaster, assistant headmaster, who prevented the students from copying. We know that in Nehini, a whole boarding house was torched because students felt that they were prevented from doing A, B, or C. this is where we are heading towards. And sometimes when you talk about some of these things, people will say that, oh, these are isolated incidents. No, they are not. It's because some of them have not gotten the opportunity to do some of these things that we don't hear. But this is where we are heading towards. And we think that it is time that we resource these support systems, the reformation centers, and all those things, so that we'll be able to at least reshape the behavior of that particular student who undergoes or who carries such a heinous crime. I think we would need to do that, and I don't have hope. I can just believe that we'll be able to do that, because our prisons are a typical example of the kind of information we are having in our system. People go to prison, they come out, become hardened criminals, but they are supposed to be reformation centers. So let's pray and hope that something better will happen one day.
Well, we'll take a short breather. When we come back, final question to my two guests before the conversation ends, and that is there hope for these 5 students? Does their education come to a halt? We'll be right back. And you are back on Fact Sheets Live on eTV, live on NISIM 95.9 and 100.1, and on Facebook as well. Mr. Sabuti.
Yes, Ami.
Does the education of these students grind to a halt as a result of this unfortunate happening?
Sammy, I don't think so. I think that there is still hope for this young boys to still pursue whatever they have set out to do in future.
How?
Sammy, you know what? I wouldn't like to just draw that conclusion that the allegation that has been leveled against them was really what happened. I mean, we are still a bit skeptical, even though somebody has died. If really what we are being told was what happened, I think that the law will take its course. And whatever happens, we believe that shouldn't cause the end, or that shouldn't result in their dream coming to an end. Okay, I believe in every misfortune, you can make something out of it. There is always advantage in every disadvantage. Okay, so in as much as we've condemned the act, I believe we need to show them that kind of love. My brother was saying that there should be that support system. Somebody will also say it happened as a result of just an accident. It could be an accident. It could be an intention. We don't know. But whatever it is, I believe that the right thing will be done. And I don't think that should bring their aspirations, their dreams, and whatever to an end. We still have to come in and support them. Because remember, they are juveniles, okay? And what we know, they don't know. So it calls for real guidance. And so let me also emphasize that we need to strengthen our guidance and counseling units in the various schools. Somebody you can easily run to when you're in trouble, when you're in a problem. I mean, when you're faced with a problem, you should be able to run to a teacher and share your problems with the teacher. Okay, we need to strengthen some of these units in our various schools. The other day I was telling a friend that, look, when we were in school, we had at least, on average, every school had counseling unit, guidance and counseling unit. And they are not just there for fun. They are there to help some of these students. Because, you know, if you look at character formation, we have nature and nurture. Okay, the environment. So for all you know, where they are even staying, they are being controlled by the environment. For all you know what they are doing, they may not even understand it. They are being pushed to do it. But with proper guidance, with proper counseling, we'll be able to bring them out of this indiscipline. Okay, so I will advise that we shouldn't just be condemning them, even though it is a condemnable act. We should still show love to these poor juveniles and see how we can help them out of this problem. Because I believe that if really that boy did it, by now, he himself is not even feeling too good.
All right, let me take final comments from Mr. Anti. Mr. Anti, is there hope for these students, especially when these juvenile correction centers in our local parlance, we call them Nkodaboni School?
I would wish I'm hopeful that we'll be able to get totally reformed kids after whatever results that happen after the court process. I'm just hoping that the system will be able to be kind to them, and at the end of the day, something positive will come out of this. But as it stands now, and for the facts on the ground, there seems to be no hope. There seems to be no hope because our prison systems are in bad shape. Our juvenile correction centers are not functional, and if you are not careful, we will have a more hardened individual after whatever process that they will go through. I want to make this final point that it was good that we tried to minimize or eliminate the use of canes and other physical harmful disciplinary measures on students, but our leaders, the managers of our schools, should note that in all areas where they do not use some of these things that we used to do, they had strong support systems in our schools. My senior brother in the studio just mentioned about the guidance and counseling system. It's non-functional. It doesn't work. Most of our schools, senior high schools, junior high schools, they don't have these counseling centers. It's a teacher that is assigned that responsibility. So and most of the times is the chaplain who doubles as a counselor. Those who have done 1 or 2 courses in guidance and counseling are those we are asking them to do. There are no professional counselors in our schools. These are support systems in these advanced countries who do not use canes. So once we were removing those things, we should have thought about building a support system that will shape the individual, that will shape the student, and at the end of the day, we will have gotten a good result. But we haven't done that. It is not too late. We need to do that as early as possible.
Ms. Auntie, I'm grateful that you made time to join us tonight on Fact Sheet. So am I grateful to you, the viewer, that you made time to watch us this evening. Also to you, the listeners of NISIM 95.9 and 100.1 as well. I'm grateful that you made time to join us this evening on the show. My guests have been Dr. Daniel Osabute, who is a senior lecturer at Accra Technical University, and Mr. Peter Anti, who is executive director for IFS. Let's make a date, God willing, next week, Tuesday, and tomorrow morning as well for a repeat broadcast of the show. But for now, I leave you with news update on eTV.